Well, welcome back to Crafty Sue, and are you ready for some perspective? Well, when you're sketching, and this is first in a series of sketching type videos, you need to know perspective. And perspective is how we see things from a distance so that you can see the depth. You can imagine the length of something. You can imagine how high something is by perspective. I had a teacher in school who the very first day of class gave us a test, a perspective test. And I never heard the word before back then, and I thought, well, this is weird. They give a test the first day of class. We haven't learned anything yet. Well, it was to see how much we knew and how our brains operated when given certain instructions. So you get instructions and you get a piece of graph paper, and if you follow the instructions correctly, you end up with a three-dimensional picture by connecting dots and drawing the lines. It's pretty cool how he did that. So I always suggest when you want to get into sketching that to get perspective down, do a still life. So I know this is an odd item to have on screen. It's a towel holder, but it has a lot of teaching potential, believe it or not. This teaches directional light, shadows, perspective, and also that little mind trick that our brain likes to play on us. If you can get past the mind trick, and I'll explain to you what that is. If you get past that, it's all gravy after that. It's like when you know an apple is red. And everybody says, oh, apples are red. But when you look at an apple under light and you really look at it, not think what your brain's saying, like your brain's saying, well, you know the apple's red. If you look at an apple and don't put that in gear and you just look at it for face value, you can see pink, you can see orange, you can even see some yellow in that red. So when you go to your drawing and you do it in color, you make it more alive. That's your depth and perspective. That's when you add those colors to something black and white. That's how it comes alive. It pops off your paper. So that's what perspective of it helps. Let's say we'll just call it perspective pops. If you look at this towel holder, you can see, I can see in the camera there, there's a shadow right here behind the pole. What's causing that? Is being caused by the lights in front of this. And I set them up like that on purpose. Because when you go to draw this, you want that shadow to show up, to show there's distance between this and here. That's perspective. It's the distance between here and here. That lets you see it. And it gives more dimension. Instead of it just to be a flat, coloring book kind of drawing, you have something with dimension. The other thing is shapes themselves. That mind trick thing, I know that this bottom is round, except for the part cut off on the back. That's my brain. That's my mind is saying, that's round. But when I look at it head on, face value, it's not round anymore. It's squished out. That's perspective. And it allows you to see height, depth, and all that I just discussed. So let's see what we can discover on how to do your first still life. If you want to just pick an apple. It's a perfect first sketch, especially learning perspective and directional light. Your directional light helps with depth and perspective. That's why I set up the lights in front of it, because I wanted you to see the shadow and understand that's what perspective is. I know this sounds like a bunch of big words for beginners, but it gets to make sense when you actually are doing it. I love drawing glasses, like a wine glass in front of a pretty background, and I did them in black and white. And the way you get the reflection off of them is you erase out, the shaded part. A glass, in our mind, we're going to say a glass is clear unless it's tinted glass. So I have a wine glass, it's going to be clear. No, it's not. It's actually like a gray. If you think about it, there's no such color as clear, because if it was, you wouldn't be able to see it. But we can see a glass, right? It's actually a type, it's a whole brain thing. You know, we're taught, this is this color, that's that color. Wipe that out of your head. Totally. And you'll thank me for it later. Trust me. So I've laid out my sketch pencils as I always do. And I have my hard pencils here. My mediums, I call like your number 2 pencil kind of thing. Hard and soft, kind of in a half and half. And then the softer ones to the right. I always have more soft ones because I love working with details and shadows and shapes and the perspective thing. And this is a blending pencil. That's so that if I have a shaded area and I want it to be a little bit darker, I can blend it in. But you can always use the paper tortillons. I have those. I have those also. Sometimes I grab one. I don't always grab one, but sometimes I do. So I just kind of keep them in a little bag in case I want to grab one. Like if I have a wide area, I have this great big fat one to spread it out. But when it gets dirty like this from shading, that's when I need to clean it, and I need a new piece of sandpaper here. Is there sandpaper? You can have a regular old piece of sandpaper if you want, but these are nice because they're on a little paddle. And just kind of get that dirt off. Kind of like giving it a face wash. And get all that excess black off, because I may not want that much to blend the next space on a picture. So I can get that off. And I try to do it at an angle to keep it pointed for that reason. It covers more area. And then this side, I was actually using watercolor crayons yesterday. They're interesting. Just have to play with them some. I like to find new art materials and mediums just to see how you can work with them, not work with them. And a really good sharpener. You gotta have a good sharpener. Now I have a pencil that's used for dressmaking, and it's a fat one, so that's why this has the 2 holes. Okay, so when you get started, some people prefer to start off with a soft pencil, a B type sketch pencil. I like to go with the middle ground to start off with because it's the hard ones, it'll leave a crease in the paper, and you don't want to have a hard crease in your paper. You want to make sure they have 90-pound weight paper or higher for when you're sketching, because once you get, if you're as critical about your own work as I am, if you see something you don't like it and you start doing this erase thing, and the paper starts to suffer for it, if you get a heavier weight paper, it won't be as bad. You'll be able to erase and not tear a hole in it. I've torn holes in it. And I did find these white eraser tips. Those are really nice because they're like see, I didn't even put my erasers out here to show you good. Because you gotta have erasers. And there's different ones. There's a super soft one. I found these in the weirdest place. It's just like I don't know, one of those resale shops or something. And then there's the white one, which is the same as what's on here. And then there's the kneadable eraser. I keep one of those out in case I was going to do like textures or something. And there's a hard black eraser. This is great to get up a spot really quick. The white ones do the same thing. And then there's charcoal in there, but I'm not using charcoal today. Charcoal messy. But so can sketch pencils. So I'm going to start off with whatever part of what you're sketching is, I call it speaking to you. Like, do this part first. Like for me, it would be to get the outline. Okay. Now there's something on this side that you can't see. Where this rounded part comes around, it divots in, and there's another shallow right there. So if I were to take on my paper and I drew a circle, because my brain says that's a circle except for one side of it, it's not going to be right. Perspective's going to be all off. The other thing that's a challenge too is sizing something down. Sometimes what you'll want to do is draw it exactly the same size. I've done that. When I first started doing my sketches, everything was like life size. You can't find some paper big enough. But so I erase from here that's round. And then I look at the line, how it goes. So this goes up, there's that arch. That pole is right in the front of that edge, so you don't have to draw that edge. I need to draw the pole. And then it comes around this way. So start, and you always want to start from the back, come forward, same way with painting, same way with sketches if you're wanting to get a three-dimensional look in your perspective. So I start that back, just a straight line because that's what I see. And what's interesting about that straight line is it comes, even though I know that this side is squared off, when you look at it from this angle where I am, it's slanted down. That's also perspective. And it only goes so wide. Have you ever drawn a box? Like a box, like just a plain box, where you make the two squares and then you connect the corners? Okay, this is how you do a box. That shows perspective too. You draw one square, okay? Then you draw the next square halfway to the middle of it, and then down, so it's like in front of it, just halfway into it. You see the two squares? There's one halfway inside the other one. Now, all the points, you connect them with a line. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now it's a cube. Can you see? That is a cube. Now, if you want to show depth, you want to show the perspective of it, you shade in a couple of the sides. So you shade in the outside, one side here, and the bottom here. And now you can see that that box goes in this way. It's that deep. It's this distance deep. That's your perspective. And if you want to get real fancy, you can lightly shade in the other sides like this. Or, so you can say that that's the inside. Or you can do shade all of them in darker and the bottom lighter. And now you're looking in the top of the box. It's all a matter of perspective. It's just a matter of perspective. So I just want to share that little cube thing with you. But you're going to go, and to scale it down, if you can go half, what you're seeing, make it like half the height. I'm not doing my straight line trick. The straight line trick is you put your pencil in one spot and your eyes where you want it to end up, and you bring your hand to it. And it typically draws a straight line for you. Okay, so I'm just, anything that's kind of crooked, you can erase it off. So now I've got to this part, and now it curves. Well, I know it's this wide, and it's curving over, but when you look at it, it's like a half moon. It doesn't do that full thing. So it goes up around the top. And this is a rough sketch, so, you know, I'm going to fix whatever. And then from that, because I'm a little bit, it goes a little higher. I'm real picky. And then the back side of it, because it's about a half-inch thick, it comes up, and it's a half-inch thick up until it gets to this crest. And that, because of the angle where I'm sitting, that's why it looks like that. I do better on my arches when I do it from the other side. Let's see. I'm going to darken this in so you can actually see it. Okay, so the top goes this way. From where I'm sitting, I can still see part of the side. I need to have that in there. But this has to be at an angle to show depth, to show the perspective of it. Then I have to do the round thing. Because from where I'm sitting, I don't see the other side. I do see the pole. I see that. So where it hits is basically here. It comes above. And it goes down. And I know the base Like you can put little like light lines where it stops. Like this back stops here, which is about that far from the bottom. Okay, and then the towel holder goes right here. Just a rough idea. And it's going in the middle of that thing. So I know it's in the middle of that base. So, okay, I'm going to pull it down there. Now, with that, okay, there's the towel holder where the towels go on top of it. This is the base and that's the back. And the back stops here from the angle that I'm looking, right? And now I have to do the base. Even though I know it's round in my mind, in front of me it's not round. That's the mind trick that it's hard to get over sometimes. And you end up doing a lot of erasing. I remember my son doing the same thing. And he was just like, ah, Mom! It's like, it's okay. You'll get it. So there's this dark corner that I'm looking at. And it's shadow. So I'm going to go down this way. And I'm going to put that in to be able to put the side in. So then I also notice that, let's see what I'm talking about here in a minute. See, I started out with that medium pencil, and it's doing its job. And that shadow goes like this. And it is this piece, the back. Then it comes down, and it stays, doesn't stay level with that. Comes in a little bit further. This is where I back up. Sometimes you have to back up so you can kind of see what you're looking at. And this actually is right. You see that? So that's going to come around. And it squishes out. It's kind of almost like an egg. Almost looks like an egg. So, and you'll get to see the side that I'm seeing when I finally get it in there. That actually juts down some, so I got that circle thing in my head and I need to get it out. I really need to get that out of there. And come around this way. Because it's squashed out. That's what it is. And make this, it is roundy. That's where this part comes in. Sometimes as I'm trying to maneuver the little brain game thing, it hits me. It's like, oh wait, if you do this first, it'll all turn out the way it's supposed to. And it usually does. So it almost looks like a cake. It has this cakey look. A layer cake. Ow. My elbow just went. Oh. Okay. Oh, there we go. I'm getting there. And I'm trying to do the whole, smush the size of it kind of thing. And that's got to come this way. And you just got to, sketching is a practice, it's always a practice. I've never sketched one of these before, on one of these things. And I did notice one thing really interesting here. It comes out this way. And then it comes back in. So that's what gave it that little shadow in the corner back here. And it doesn't go all the way there. So now I've actually got that little spot in there. And I can just make this one more solid. And this one comes this way. And there's that part Oh, that makes me so happy. And this comes down. And of course, it's going to go, it's this part that's out of whack. I got one corner. Sometimes that's what happens. You get the one corner going, and then it's like, oh, okay, got it. And then the base of that towel holder is weird. Oh, there you go. There you are. I thought it was in there somehow. Just like this. Yeah, it's like when I did a sketch of my father, and his head is tilted, and I go, oh, how do I do that? The tilted head. It was a challenge. What? It was all right. That's what I needed right there. It was too long. Too long. The base part was too long. So we're going to go like this and like this. And that's the rounded top. Now, I know it's round, but it's really not round. So this is the part I was telling you where the top is round, but when I'm looking at it here, it has this little smushed kind of look to it. And also, this line here has to be at an angle. Even though I know it's straight across, it's got to be at an angle. Because looking this way, it's going up. And when you can get past the mind trick and actually go in, oh yeah, that's right, it goes up. Now it gives it more the round illusion, but it's not an illusion, it actually is rounded in the front. So, and then the base of this, it's rounded, but you're only going to semi do just around the base, not straight across. You round it off. So you have to let it seem that it is round when in fact it is. Now to do the shadow in the back, you have to think, okay, the light's coming from here and I see the shadow there and it's almost smack dab in the middle. So here's the middle and it's got the rounded top even in there. And it does not go all the way to the top. The shadow stops right below the top. And it comes down. And this is the tricky part. The shadow comes down. And then it goes up to the base of this. Because the light hits it and everything behind that goes dark, including this section right here. So you want to reflect that. You want that to show. Now I'm going to take one of my softer pencils to show you how that's going to be. In the grains in the wood, that's when you can use your eraser pencil, and I'll show you how that's. There's a technique for that right here also. And I've got this little knot in here, and a knot here. Oh, bad lead. One of my six soft pencils is just not good quality. The other ones are much better. And there's that one there. And there's one over here. There's little knots in there. Now if I want to add details to them, I can use the eraser, I can use a hard pencil or whatever. The grain in it is real easy to do. This shadow on the side, I'll take care of that real quick with my number 6 B pencil. And then I'm going to, this side is even shaded. It's like not real, it's not real bright like the front. And even the back of the pole, the towel pole, it's got dark. There's lights hitting the front of it, so part of the back is going to be a little darker, including the tip. And then right at the base of this whole thing, because it's sitting on a table and there's no light between it and the table, it's going to have some shadow as well. I wouldn't even want to attempt to put this into color. I could do it. It's just not one of those things. But when you put in the tiny little shadow of where your item is touching the table, that shows more perspective. It shows depth. It says, oh, okay, so there's a space there, as minimal as it is, but it's there. Now, this is where you can use the tortilla, you can use a tissue, you can use a sponge, but you just go, anything that is a shadow, just blend it out. That's what I do. In any place where it's dark and gets brighter towards the front. And the way you do it, you pull, just like this. You're going to pull this dark line. That's why I did it extra heavy. And I used a 6B pencil. And then you're going to pull it out without cleaning this and show that is dimensional. So, and do the outline of it on the other side. So now, and I'll show you how to do the highlight. You kind of give it its texture, its color, go down to the base. And I haven't done anything but blend this out. This is all part of the shading, the blending out. It's going to be lighter back there because that light does get through. And it's dark here because this is, the light's at that angle, it can't get down in here. And this is where it's touching the tabletop. And you just pull it out just by blending it. Just blend it out. I didn't used to use these. I used to use my fingers. I would take my finger and get dirty fingers. But you can do the same thing, just using your finger. I mean, you can go just like this and give it that feeling of, oh wow, that's like got, you can touch a dimension. Okay? And then little black knots in here, and they can get some detail. But on this side, I just use a lighter line because it's shadowed, but it's not dark. It's not, and the top is very light. So very genteelly, I'm going up there to get the edge done. Okay. So for the background, we're just going to do it because it's lit up. And we're going to blend this out. No, blur it out. That I call blur it out. Where you pull a little bit more out on the edges of it so it's not so crisp, because the shadows aren't that crisp. And pull that out. Do the same thing on the other side. Right there. And there's that part. Now the base has a lot of wavy lines and things in it. So I'm just going to blend out these two little knots that are in here and part of the shadow. And I'm going to show how you can get wood grain on this thing to give it even more character and depth. And I always like to go back and crispen up the lines with a harder pencil. Usually it's a 4 hard and not a 2. 2's not good enough, but I'm going to bring more of that down so that we've got, so it's just, looks like, oh yeah, it's sitting on something. You can even put behind it, you know, the illusion that that's where the tabletop ends, you know, something of that nature. But this is this part of it. Now you can take another soft but not super soft pencil, and what did I get here? It's a 3B, and I'm going to just define the edges a little bit, especially right here in the front. Throwing a little grain line there. Now, I haven't done it with this particular picture before. I'm looking at the wood grain and it's pretty much all vertical lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this have some dark vertical lines. They kind of break in between. This one over on the other side, it has a fat one. It goes like this. I mean, you can put some fat ones in there. They're not all skinny. Yeah. And just go kind of goofy with it if you want. Now on the base here, there's actually like the rings, the wood rings. So I'm just gonna, they don't have to be exactly like what's on the thing. You make up your own wood grain. Yeah, you make up your own. And it can be as funky as you want or not. And you can fill in some darker, some not. It's your piece of art. So, and this is a lot of them. Look at that right here. And on this side. And in the front, there's a knot over here, but it's not real pronounced, so I'm not gonna make it. I'm just gonna do like a little outline of it, a little dot here. Then take this little guy, and I'm gonna blend those in, and then watch what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take the eraser pencil. It's kind of like if you think about a negative. And it's like a relief kind of thing. And do this little bit here. And I need to get a, which one is this one? This is just a 2D. Because I always can pull from what I'm doing. But I want this to have soft but crisp. Basically what I'm going for. And anything where the wood meets another spot, and I definitely want that to be displayed in that manner. Especially all your front edges, where that light hits it, and it kind of like pops. Or even back there. Now, to make that pole be light reflective, so to speak, you take wherever that light's hitting it. I'm going to erase out some of the gray. And it's getting it here. It's actually going on pretty much on the front. And so now I can do that in the back and get those lines that I want, that wood grain. That's all you gotta do. I can't tell if you can tell. So you're just using an eraser. You're erasing out to give it that depth. You leave the shadow alone. You don't want to take anything out of that. But this here is giving the wood grain its grain. And on the top where that light just hits the peak of the top, just one little spot, just like that. And then there's this other area where it's hitting right here. And so now it looks rounded. And it should look rounded. And then down here, these guys, I'm going to do this laying down. These guys have a definite design. So I want that to show off. I want that design to show off. So I'm going to erase out what I don't need down there so that you can actually see the design in it. Like especially at the bottom of this the pole, there's several straight grain lines. And there's this guy. And you still keep your outline. Your outline still stays there. And to show off that edge, nice and straight and crisp, that's where I erase the excess out. Any excess you don't need, just erase it out. It's easier to do with the, that's why I love these eraser pencils, because it's so much easier to make it look, you know, all three-dimensional. And the front edges on do that. Never thought I'd be drawing a towel rack or towel holder, but it's a good example. And then I'm just going to take, this is the cleaner side, and just kind of pull it down, just soften everything out. Just like this, and that way you can see that little bit of, since I'm not using color, I'm going to use the graying out. Like that. Go down to my shadow below. Not out. Try to keep crisp line on the edge. It just gives it more definition. And go like that. Up and down. Try to go along with however you erased it. Try to keep up that same mode of direction. And then when you're finished, you can neaten it up. I'll take an eraser and I'll just kind of like halo it out or vignette it. Just like it was meant to be. So, like that, end up with a towel holder. Now there's some grainy lines in the front. I just noticed them. So I'm going to take, since I haven't used a hard pencil to show you, I'm going to just make sure those little guys show up real well. They're cool. This is the hard ones there. They're hard. So you want to be real careful where you're using them and how you do. And like the little knots, they can use some hard lines in amongst there. And I'm gonna go like, especially around here. Helps with the grain. Actually looks good with the little tiny thin lines thrown in there, just to kind of give it some personality, I guess you would call it. And especially in the back, because now you can take those dark lines and just put a crisp, hard line behind it to make it say, oh, that's grain. So it's just being kind of like a blur. And that's the only time you can really see those in the shadow in the back. When you use one of these really thin, hard line pencils. Now it really makes it give it a kind of wood grain look, especially on the side. That was kind of in the shadows, but not a whole lot. And that just kind of finishes it out. With the pole, it has some little lines in it, not too many, but it makes it more real that way. I'll just use a little hard pencil, put some vertical, they're kind of wavy in it. And just like that. I just find myself putting them in after that. Now we have some wood grain, so I hope you can see that. But that's what you want to do to play with and practice your perspective. The angle that I'm sitting, there's a dark side. You remember where your light's coming from. You can't go wrong. You just have to ignore the mind game where it tells you, well, that's round, so you have to draw a circle. No, you don't, because once that round is sitting down at an angle and you're sitting up here, you see an egg. It's an egg shape. Try with a wine glass, and you'll see I'm right. If you've liked this kind of approach to learning sketching, I would love to hear it in the comments. We can do this in color. We can do things like this in color with perspective. Sometimes people are like, well, I like black and white. Well, that's okay. You don't have to like black and white. But let me tell you what black and white can do, and does fabulously. Let me find him. He's here. Is when you go to do your very first portrait of someone you love, and it turns out like this. He's a cutie. He's got a Dennis the Menace haircut though. I didn't notice it until I looked at the photograph that I did the sketch from. But a face in black and white says a million words, doesn't it? Come back and see me, and we'll do some more No Rules Art with Crafty soon. God bless.